serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
With Joe McClane and EmilyiAlcaraz.
But joining us right now via Zoom chat is Christine Niles from Church Militant. Good morning to you, Christine.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Praise be to God, I'm alive. How are you?
I'm doing great.
That counts, doesn't it? It counts. It totally counts. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know over at Church Militant, you guys are always very, very busy, but you have breaking news today. What is going on?
Yes, it's a bombshell. We just broke the news this morning. Cardinal Roger Mahoney of LA has been sued for the very first time for allegedly committing sex abuse against a minor.
Like he personally committed that's the allegations. Yes. He personally committed this.
And it's the first lawsuit of this sort against him. Now, he's been sued in multiple other lawsuits for covering up sex abuse. And, I don't think really this is something that's in dispute. He's notorious. He has a notorious reputation. He served LA from 1985 to 2011. And, recent documents show that he would send predator priests out of state, and then he would reinstate them to active ministry where they would abuse again, just all sorts of things. And so he's got this notorious reputation for covering things up, so bad that his archdiocese paid out the single largest sex abuse settlement in the history of the United States.
Wow.
$616 million, almost $1 billion. It's higher now. That was back in 2007. So mostly because of his leadership. But now a lawsuit was just filed on April 19th by a John Doe who claims that he was from Mexico. His family came to St. Vibiana Catholic Cathedral, which was the cathedral before we had Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral. This was the previous cathedral where Mahoney was. And apparently, according to him, Mahoney took a special interest in him, took him under his wing, became his mentor and trusted authority. And then apparently, according to this guy, he assaulted him when he was only 17 years old in the rectory bathroom while an employee was guarding the door and, according to him, eagerly watching on.
What?
This is pretty bombshell news. And we just broke it on our site today. And so far, it just happened. So Mahoney hasn't said anything publicly about it. It'll be interesting to see how the archdiocese responds, because he also accuses the archdiocese of covering it up. He says people knew and they protected him.
Wow. That's pretty horrific. If true, that is really egregious.
And, he even says that there are more victims and a lot of people don't realize this, but Mahoney has been accused by other people before. He's actually on the list of publicly accused clergy in LA, but they claim he's been exonerated. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot that we don't know about Mahoney still publicly. I mean, I'm sure the locals probably have been familiar with these details for quite some time, but the rest of the church at large pretty much has been given a different picture of Cardinal Mahoney. Now, how old is Cardinal Mahoney at this point?
I believe he's approaching 80. I'm not quite sure.
He's definitely getting up there.
Yeah.
So this case goes back to when?
The guy claims back in 1986 when he was 17 years old, and he had just come from Mexico with his family, and so he claims he was taken advantage of, which was the case with many other priests in LA. A lot of the poor Mexican immigrant kids would often be the victims of these guys. So,
wow, that is very tragic. Why do you think more people haven't taken the same level of action against Mahoney? He seems to have gotten a pass for most of it. We're just now seeing him start to be held accountable here. Why not more victims coming forward?
That's a very good question, because when I first heard about the abuse lawsuit, I was just sort of dumbstruck, like, wow, really? He's kind of skated by for decades without my ever hearing about him personally committing any sex abuse. Now, he has certainly been accused by many of covering it up. I mean, just lawsuit after law. I mean, that's his reputation. Essentially, he's got that reputation. But like I said, he has been accused before by at least two individuals, two youths, and they claim it was unsubstantiated. He's a very powerful person. He's extremely powerful. He was like almost the top guy for a long time in the United States. And so I think obviously victims are very afraid to come forward when you're dealing with a very powerful cardinal. At this point, he's not so powerful anymore, I guess. I don't know the reasons why this particular victim chose to come out right now. But I do hope that others, if there are others, they should come forward.
So what does the process look like now that with the Pope Francis changes and how the prosecution of accused bishops and cardinals? What is the process like now?
Right. So Pope Francis changed the rules so that he no longer is necessarily the person to judge cardinals, but he can delegate that authority to another court. I'm not a canonist, so I don't know the full implications of this. I don't know exactly how all of this works, but I do know that a lot of people were very kind of shocked by the sudden change. So, like I said, I'm not a canon lawyer, so I can't provide legal expertise on exactly what this means. But I do know some of my canonist friends were quite upset that that authority was delegated from the Pope to another tribunal. Because technically only a Pope should be judging cardinals.
Right.
So we'll see more information coming out of Church Militant, I assume, over this case as the details become available. But I want to switch topics here while we still have about another 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes with you. There's the story out of Detroit. It was the priest that had he was apparently vindicated out of Rome. Catch us up on that story. Who was involved? What happened?
Right. So this is the case of Father Edward Perone. I've done lots and lots of coverage of Father Perone over the past couple of years, but very quickly, he was essentially suspended from priestly ministry in July 2019 over a 40-year-old allegation of abuse. And the main allegation that he was removed for was essentially raping a minor, an altar boy. Well, it turns out that rape charge was entirely fabricated.
Wow.
By the detective who was helping out the archdiocesan clergy for misconduct, who was Monsignor Michael Bugarin. They essentially fabricated this. They put the words in the accuser's mouth. They brought it to the review board, and the reviewers took Father Perone out. Father Perone went to court. He sued the detective for defamation. He won. He won $125,000. Out of the defamation lawsuit. Then he sued Monsignor Bugarin because Bugarin wouldn't reinstate him to ministry. So that lawsuit's ongoing. At the same time, there's a canonical case going on in Rome as well, which just wrapped up recently. Father Perone was vindicated. The CDF, the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, essentially said, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. This case is closed. But rather than reinstating him to priestly ministry, which they should do, the archdiocese is prosecuting him in a canonical trial, essentially because they're upset that he fought back. They're upset that he sued Monsignor Bugarin. So they're saying that's conduct unbecoming of the clerical state. Well, what are you supposed to do as a priest?
But defend yourself, right.
What are you supposed to do?
Now,
so he's fighting that.
So what was their motivation from the get-go here? Did they have something against this particular priest?
They've had some against him for a very long time. He's been a long time traditional priest here in the Archdiocese of Detroit, very Orthodox. He's the one who exposed, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Detroit, the previous seminary, St. John's Provincial, there was a porn scandal, essentially, where seminarians were being shown pornography as part of a morality course.
What?
He actually wrote to Pope John Paul II personally. And he had his letter translated into Polish because he wanted to make sure the Pope got it. He exposed the scandal, and that caused a huge uproar, and the seminary was eventually shut down. But that was Father Perone back in the 1970s. And so they've held a grudge against him ever since that time.
Oh, I see. So they were just waiting for their moment.
Yeah.
Now that he's been vindicated, does he get to continue in ministry? I mean, what is his life like now?
They won't reinstate him. They will not reinstate him. They want to keep him out of ministry. So he's now appealing to Rome again, saying, please reinstate me, because they won't do it. It's a very vindictive, corrupt lot here, unfortunately.
Can he get incarnated somewhere else?
I was about to ask that same question.
He could, but he's approaching 75. This is his lifelong diocese. He just doesn't want to up and this is where his family is. He doesn't want to up and move at this age.
Yeah, I guess that's a very tough situation. We'll be praying for him, but
please do.
We know he's not the only priest out there in similar circumstances with their bishops and the diocese. These days are pretty dicey, but let's go back to this porn scandal again. You've been reporting on that. Even has there been even more updates on that story lately? Well,
so the essentially high-ranking faculty member who was kind of in charge of spiritual formation, according to the seminarian claims there was porn on his laptop. We did a special report on it where the seminary essentially sort of hushed it all up. And what's interesting is there's been no response whatsoever from the Archdiocese, like nothing. And I even wrote to sources asking, hey, is there any sort of chatter in the seminary itself about this? And they said, oh, it's deafening silence. But right now there's a split apparently in the faculty between those who are shocked and upset by the news and those who kind of knew about it, but they're like, we shouldn't say anything. Just let it die down. Which is never really a good response.
It seems strange. They're young men. Of course, they're going to be attacked and tempted by pornography. So that's, I would say, probably a fairly normal occurrence in seminaries all across the world. But we have the tools to deal with these things. They're called, grace, the sacraments, and counseling. So why cover things up?
Well, this had to do with a high-ranking faculty member, not a seminarian. It was actually a high-ranking faculty member who essentially was allegedly caught with the porn, and instead of doing anything about it, instead of addressing it properly, sending him to counseling or doing anything, the scandal really was that the seminary hushed it all up, covered it up, acted as if nothing ever happened. And this is a guy in charge of spiritual formation.
And he's not been held accountable secretly behind the closed doors.
Not at all. Not at all.
Wow.
As far as I know, I mean, it just seems like a huge cover-up. And it does not look good. And I think he's getting a promotion too. So it's just kind of scandalous.
Wow.
You've got this guy in charge of spiritual formation and nothing's done. And it's kind of the seminarian is the one who's blamed, and the whistleblowers are blamed. And it's just, more evidence of more rot.
Well, I guess there's plenty of things to pray, fast, and do penance for. Yes. There's no shortage of that anymore.
Absolutely.
But praise be to God in all things. We're just about out of time, Christine. Any other news stories that you're going to be diving into this week?
This week, many, but the best thing to do is tune into Evening News. We're at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time at churchmilitant.com. That's kind of our big news roundup every night. So.
All right. Praise be to God. Breaking news with Christine today on Cardinal Mahoney being sued for allegedly abusing a minor. That's kind of a big story. We'll keep our eyes peeled on that, and hopefully you'll have you back, Christine, to share more. But thanks for being on today. Churchmilitant.com is the website. You should check it out, but we'll link to it as well. Christine, God love you. Have a great day.
Thank you. God bless.
All right. That is going to do it for the What's Concerning Us. On the other side of this break, Sean Carney is going to be our guest.